Archaeologists opened a 2,600-year-old sealed tomb. What they found inside shocked the world. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel. Dear friends, archaeology has always been considered a journey back through time, where every layer of soil uncovered is not merely a piece of the past, but a doorway that can reveal an entire story forgotten by humanity for thousands of years. From buried ancient cities and vanished civilizations to tombs that have remained untouched in darkness, every discovery helps us better understand the lives, beliefs, and secrets of people who lived long ago. But among all archaeological discoveries, ancient tombs perhaps bring the most special feeling of all. Because behind stone doors and layers of earth that have concealed the passage of time lies the story of people who once existed. People who had power, love, beliefs, and mysteries that still remain unsolved. So, have you ever wondered what truly lies inside a tomb that has been sealed for hundreds or even thousands of years? Are they simply the remains of unknown individuals? Or could they be discoveries powerful enough to force history to be rewritten? If humanity has searched for the answers but has only been met with uncertainty and dead ends, then in today's video, join me as we step into the world of the most mysterious and extraordinary ancient tombs ever discovered on Earth. From tombs sealed for thousands of years, to burial sites containing strange and unusual remains, to chambers filled with unimaginable treasures, and even discoveries that have left humanity asking questions that still have no answers to this very day. Are you ready to begin this journey? If so, let's start right now. 2,600-year-old sealed tomb in Italy and the shocking secret hidden inside. In archaeology, there is one thing that almost everyone understands. The more famous an ancient tomb is, the less likely it is to remain intact. After thousands of years, most tombs have either been damaged by the passage of time or become targets for treasure hunters seeking ancient artifacts. However, from time to time, history creates exceptions that leave even experts unable to believe what they are seeing. And this time, that exception appeared on the San Giuliano Plateau, near the city of Rome, Italy, where archaeologists recently discovered an Etruscan tomb dating back approximately 2,600 years that remained almost perfectly sealed. The first thing that made the excavation team realize they were standing before an extraordinary discovery was the massive stone blocking the entrance. It was still sitting exactly where it had originally been placed, showing no signs of being moved or disturbed. That single detail was enough for experts to understand that most likely, no one had entered this chamber since the burial ceremony was completed thousands of years ago. So just imagine this. After more than 2.5 millennia, what could still be waiting behind that sealed stone door? The answer only became clear when the stone was finally moved. Before the archaeologists was a nearly untouched burial chamber, with 2 human skeletons still lying exactly where ancient people had placed them, surrounded by numerous burial objects that had never been disturbed. The feeling at that moment was as if time had stopped thousands of years ago and had only just begun moving again today. This is why many experts have described this discovery as one of the most well-preserved burial contexts ever recorded in southern Etruria, Italy. The tomb was discovered as part of the San Giuliano Archaeological Research Project conducted by Baylor University, at an ancient necropolis famous for containing more than 600 rock-cut tombs. However, the majority of the tombs in this area were looted long ago, especially after the Romans expanded their control over the region in the late 3rd century BC. Because of this, finding a burial chamber that remained almost completely untouched is considered an extremely rare archaeological event. Even more fascinating is that this was already the second intact tomb discovered in this area within just 1 year. In 2025, the same research team excavated another untouched tomb located only a few yards away from the current discovery. These 2 consecutive discoveries have given scientists a rare opportunity to study how the Etruscans planned their burial grounds and carried out their funeral rituals in a setting that had remained almost completely unaffected by human interference. But the discoveries did not stop there. Alongside the 2 skeletons, archaeologists also uncovered many valuable artifacts. One of the most remarkable finds was a spearhead placed beside one of the deceased individuals. This detail may suggest that the person buried there was male, although scientists still need to conduct further analysis to confirm this with certainty. In addition, researchers discovered several objects characteristic of Etruscan culture, including large storage jars known as ole. the famous glossy black drinking cups called buchero, and a small Greek vessel used for holding oil or perfume. This Greek vessel opened the door to a fascinating story about the cultural connections between the Etruscans and the ancient Greek world. It reveals just how strongly communities thousands of years ago interacted, exchanged goods, and influenced one another. But perhaps the greatest value of this discovery does not lie in the artifacts themselves, but in their exact positions. Everything remained arranged just as it was on the day it was originally placed inside the tomb. Thanks to this, archaeologists now have a rare opportunity to accurately observe how the Etruscans organized their funeral rituals and arranged offerings around the deceased. According to Dr. Barbara Barbero, who directly participated in the excavation, the San Giuliano necropolis contains more than 500 tombs, but most of them were robbed from ancient times all the way to the present day. That is why the discovery of 2 tombs that had never been opened is considered an extraordinarily rare event in archaeology. She believes that every time the door of an untouched tomb is opened, it is as if humanity has just crossed a bridge connecting directly to the past. In the coming months, experts will continue analyzing the skeletons and all of the artifacts to determine their age, gender, health conditions, and uncover the secrets that have remained preserved for more than 2,600 years. Until then, let us wait and see what the final discoveries will reveal. The mysterious tomb of a Southern Song dynasty, prime minister in China, revealing the truth behind the golden head that shocked everyone. The story begins in Wulian Village, a small village located in Zhejiang Province, China. During an archaeological survey conducted there in 2012, experts discovered an ancient tomb along with a uniquely crafted coffin. From the very first moment they saw it, they realized this was not an ordinary burial site. And they were absolutely right. After conducting examinations, experts confirmed that the coffin was made from Nanmu wood, a rare and precious type of timber that was once considered a treasure during China's imperial era. Throughout many periods of history, its value was even considered higher than gold. Based on the remaining stone inscriptions and the artifacts discovered around the burial site, archaeologists concluded that this was most likely the final resting place of Shi Songji, a famous prime minister during the Southern Song dynasty. If you have ever studied Chinese history, you may know that Shi Songji was a very special figure. During his time as prime minister, he proposed many policies that benefited ordinary people and made important contributions when the country faced foreign invasions. He was the emperor's right-hand man, holding power second only to the ruler himself. It could be said that his position perfectly matched the old saying, "Below one person, above 10,000." However, great power can also change people. According to many historical records, Shi Songji gradually became strict and authoritarian. He openly demoted and even executed officials who opposed him or disagreed with his decisions. Because of this, although he made many contributions to the court, he also created many enemies and left behind numerous controversies among both the people and officials of his time. But all of those events were relatively common among powerful figures of that era. The truly mysterious and confusing part was what happened after his death. According to a legend passed down for centuries, people who hated the prime minister secretly broke into his tomb, cut off his head, and took it away as an act of revenge. You may wonder, why would they do such a thing? The answer lies in ancient Chinese beliefs about death. People in ancient China placed great importance on preserving the body after death. They believed that if a person's remains were incomplete, it would become difficult for the soul to find peace or be reincarnated. Therefore, losing one's head was considered an extremely humiliating fate for the deceased. At that time, Shi Songji's family was said to have fallen into complete panic. They sent people everywhere searching for his missing head and even offered a large reward, but all efforts ended in failure. Meanwhile, his body began to decay because the burial had been delayed. In this desperate situation, legend claims that the family hired a skilled goldsmith to create a solid gold head, shaped to look exactly like the real one, as a replacement. And then this mysterious story quickly spread throughout the region, causing the prime minister's tomb to become a target for many grave robbers. Everyone believed that if they could find the tomb, they would obtain a priceless golden treasure. However, for hundreds of years after his death, no one was able to determine the exact location of his burial place. It was not until 2012, when archaeologists excavated the tomb in Wulian village, that this mystery was finally brought to light. What surprised everyone present was that the body inside the coffin was still completely intact, with no sign that the head had ever been removed as the legend claimed. And of course, there was also no solid gold head hidden inside the coffin. With this discovery alone, a story that had existed for hundreds of years was almost completely turned upside down. However, the greatest value of the excavation actually came from the coffin itself. Experts confirmed that it was carved from a single piece of non-mu wood, measuring approximately 8.2 feet long, with a width and height of nearly 3.3 feet and coffin walls almost 4 inches thick. Its surface was decorated with incredibly detailed carvings, demonstrating the advanced craftsmanship of the Southern Song dynasty. Using such a large piece of non-mu wood to create a coffin was extremely rare, because this type of timber was extraordinarily valuable and was usually reserved for members of the royal family or individuals with exceptionally high social status. That magnificent coffin also reflected, to some extent, the power, wealth, and influence that Shi Songji possessed throughout his lifetime. Today, this precious artifact has been carefully preserved, not only as an important archaeological treasure, but also as a valuable source of information that helps researchers better understand the history, culture, and burial traditions of the Southern Song dynasty. You see, sometimes discoveries like this remind us that the truth of history is often far more fascinating than the legends passed down through generations, don't you think? That is why rumors are not always the truth. So always remain wise and cautious when hearing stories that have been passed down through time but have never been personally witnessed. Because sometimes, what people say may be extraordinary, but what history reveals can be even more surprising. The mysterious creature still living inside a 500-year-old tomb that shocked experts. The story began when China launched the Third National Cultural Relics Survey, which took place from June 2007 to December 2011, with the goal of documenting, evaluating, and protecting cultural heritage sites across the country. During this nationwide survey, experts paid special attention to an ancient tomb located on Tianluo Mountain, Shengdeng area, Longcheng County, Sichuan Province, a place that had long been surrounded by mysterious stories passed down among local residents. People claimed that deep inside the mountain forest, there was a very mysterious ancient tomb. However, because of its extremely remote location, almost no one had ever seen it with their own eyes. As time passed, the story gradually became more like a legend than reality, because almost nobody knew the exact location of the tomb. It was not until 2009 that a local resident accidentally discovered traces of the tomb while climbing the mountain. Although the deserted surroundings made the discovery somewhat unsettling, the person still realized that this could be an important historical site and immediately reported it to the local cultural heritage authorities. From that moment, archaeologists finally gained access to a place that had been forgotten by time for centuries. When they arrived at the site, the first thing they saw was a structure that had seriously deteriorated. Wild grass covered the pathways, and many parts of the structure had been damaged by rain, sunlight, and the passage of time. However, the more carefully the experts examined the site, the more they realized this was not an ordinary tomb. The stone walls were covered with numerous patterns, murals, and inscriptions related to Buddhism, suggesting that the owner of the tomb was likely a high-ranking Buddhist monk or someone with a special position within the Buddhist community. After completing their survey plans, the research team began exploring the interior of the tomb. Contrary to their initial expectations, they found almost no gold, silver, jewelry, or valuable burial objects commonly discovered in ancient tombs. Instead, the greatest value of this site came from the murals and ancient inscriptions that had been relatively well preserved on the tomb walls. These discoveries became an important source of information, helping researchers better understand the beliefs, burial practices, and Buddhist culture of the local region during the Ming Dynasty. Finally, after extensive analysis and repeated comparisons with historical records, experts determined that the owner of the tomb was most likely Master Yan Zhuguang, a Buddhist monk who lived approximately 500 years ago during China's Ming Dynasty. According to surviving records, he was known as a person who lived a humble life, frequently helped the poor, and devoted his entire life to doing good deeds. Perhaps because of this simple lifestyle, the tomb contained almost no valuable possessions. However, while the team was carefully documenting every detail of the murals and recording the ancient inscriptions, something unexpected happened. In a dark corner of the tomb, one member of the team suddenly noticed a small blue light flickering. Inside the completely dark and silent chamber, this strange glow immediately attracted everyone's attention. Some even thought they might have discovered a luminescent pearl, a legendary treasure often mentioned in ancient Chinese tomb stories. Carrying flashlights, the group carefully moved closer. But strangely, the moment the light was directed toward it, the mysterious blue glow suddenly disappeared. Before anyone could understand what had happened, a dark shadow suddenly rushed past their feet, causing several people to step back in surprise. The atmosphere inside the tomb immediately became tense. In a place that had been sealed by time for hundreds of years, the appearance of a living creature made everyone wonder, how long had it been living here? And how could it survive in a space that was almost completely isolated from the outside world? Could they encounter danger if they continued exploring deeper inside? These questions pushed the archaeological team to temporarily withdraw from the site to ensure everyone's safety. Not long afterward, rumors about a tomb-guarding beast quickly spread throughout the area. Some people believed it was a sacred creature protecting the resting place of the Buddhist monk. Others believed it was simply an unexplained natural phenomenon. However, when experts reviewed all the photographs taken during the investigation, they made a surprising discovery: images of two strange animals hiding in the corner of the tomb. After inviting zoologists to analyze the creatures, researchers determined that they were actually dole-like badgers, known as Chinese ferret badgers, a rare animal species that was once believed to have nearly disappeared from this region. And they were right. During a later return visit, the archaeological team personally saw two Chinese ferret badgers curled up in the dark corner of the tomb. It turned out that the monster that frightened everyone was not a mysterious creature at all, but simply two animals that had chosen this quiet, rarely disturbed space as their shelter. This discovery completely changed the direction of the excavation. Experts realized that continuing the research could potentially disrupt the habitat of this rare animal species. After reporting the situation to the authorities and receiving approval, they decided to stop further excavation and preserve the tomb exactly as it was, allowing the two animals to continue living there safely. This was a rare decision in archaeology. Instead of continuing to search for more historical treasures, researchers chose to protect the living creatures that were right in front of them. A truly compassionate and meaningful decision, don't you think? The 3,000-year-old tomb of a female hero whose power rivaled Qin Shi Huang, China's most famous emperor. When people talk about the greatest figures in Chinese history, most immediately think of Qin Shi Huang. He was the first emperor to unify China, a ruler who transformed an entire civilization through a series of groundbreaking reforms. However, did you know that more than 1,000 years before the era of Qin Shi Huang, there was already a woman who many researchers believe possessed an influence that was no less significant than that of the famous emperor? Unfortunately, as the course of history unfolded, her name was almost completely forgotten. It was not until an archaeological excavation in Henan Province, China, that researchers discovered her tomb, opening a doorway back to a past that existed approximately 3,000 years ago. The tomb itself was not as massive as many people might imagine for the final resting place of such a powerful figure. However, what was hidden inside was enough to astonish the entire archaeological world. When the tomb was opened, thousands of valuable artifacts appeared before the researchers' eyes, revealing the life story of a female hero who once played a crucial role in changing the fate of an entire dynasty. You may be wondering, who was this legendary woman? Her name was Fu Hao, the famous female hero of China's Shang dynasty. If Qin Shi Huang is remembered by history as the ruler who unified China, standardized writing, measurements, currency, and many important administrative systems, then Fu Hao is remembered by later generations as a figure who always placed the well-being of ordinary people above everything else. During the Shang dynasty, society frequently faced natural disasters, harsh climates, and prolonged periods of poor harvests. As a result, the lives of ordinary people were extremely difficult. According to surviving records, Fu Hao was deeply concerned about the suffering of the people. After discussing the situation with the Shang king, she made a bold decision to organize the migration of people to southern regions where the natural conditions were more favorable for settlement and agricultural production. This was a decision of enormous importance at that time because large-scale migration in ancient societies was far from simple. But Fu Hao did not stop there. After the people had established new settlements, she encouraged them to clear new land, expand agricultural areas, and build long-term sources of livelihood. These policies helped many communities achieve greater stability and contributed to the survival and development of the Shang dynasty during a challenging period. Because of this, she was deeply loved and respected by the people. However, as mentioned earlier, the unfortunate truth is that historical records about Fu Hao are extremely limited. Over thousands of years, the image of this extraordinary woman gradually faded into the shadows of history. Characters only knew of her through a few scattered documents, which were not enough to fully reconstruct the life of someone who once held such a significant position in ancient society. It was only after archaeologists discovered her tomb in Henan Province, China, that everything began to change. After careful preparation, experts began excavating the tomb, hoping to uncover more evidence about the life of this remarkable woman. And just as they had hoped, the moment the tomb was opened, they made a discovery that shocked the archaeological community. Although the tomb itself was not particularly large, the quantity and value of the burial objects inside far exceeded initial expectations. Layer by layer, artifacts slowly emerged from the earth after remaining undisturbed for thousands of years. From finely crafted bronze objects and ivory artifacts to numerous valuable jade and stone treasures, every item reflected the advanced craftsmanship of the Shang dynasty. What surprised experts the most was the total number of artifacts discovered inside the tomb: 1,928 individual objects. Each artifact helped tell the story of Fu Hao's status, power, and extraordinary role in society approximately 3 millennia ago. Just imagine this. From a tomb that appeared relatively modest at first glance, archaeologists uncovered nearly 2,000 precious artifacts. Doesn't that alone reveal just how influential this woman must have been in history? Beyond their material value, this discovery also carried enormous significance for Chinese archaeology. Before this discovery, researchers still had many unanswered questions about Shang dynasty tombs. The excavation in Henan provided valuable direct evidence, helping scientists better understand burial rituals, craftsmanship techniques, bronze casting, and the cultural life of one of China's oldest dynasties. More importantly, this tomb brought Fu Hao's name back into history. From a figure who had only appeared briefly in a handful of ancient records, she gradually came to be recognized as a female hero with extraordinary influence during the Shang dynasty. And perhaps what was discovered inside this 3,000-year-old tomb in Henan Province, China, has proven that history was not created only by famous emperors like Qin Shi Huang. It was also shaped by people who quietly devoted themselves to their nation and their people. Individuals whose achievements remained powerful enough to astonish the world thousands of years later. This is exactly what makes archaeology so fascinating, don't you think? The mysterious tomb of Sima Yi, the legendary Chinese general known for his remarkable achievements. As you know, Chinese history has witnessed countless brilliant generals. Some figures entered history through their extraordinary military achievements, yet the locations of their final resting places became mysteries that lasted for thousands of years. And Sima Yi, the powerful strategist, military commander, and politician of the Wei Kingdom during the Three Kingdoms period, was one such case. For many centuries, numerous scholars attempted to locate his tomb, but all efforts remained nothing more than theories and speculation. Then, an unexpected discovery in Luoyang City, Henan Province, China, shocked the entire archaeological community. If you are a fan of Chinese history, you are probably already familiar with the name Sima Yi, aren't you? He is considered one of the most outstanding figures of the Three Kingdoms era, famous for his sharp intelligence, calm personality, and extraordinary patience. In many historical stories, he is often compared with Zhuge Liang. Some people believe Zhuge Liang represents loyalty and devotion, while others argue that Sima Yi possessed a superior strategic vision. It was his careful planning, wisdom, and long-term ambition that allowed the Sima family to gradually gain power, eventually taking the throne from the Cao Wei dynasty and paving the way for the establishment of the Western Jin dynasty. However, despite his legendary reputation, the location of Sima Yi's final resting place almost completely disappeared from history after his death. For more than 1,000 years, countless theories were proposed regarding the location of his tomb, but no evidence was strong enough to provide a definite answer. Everything changed when an unexpected event occurred in Nantaijuang Village, Yanxi District, Luoyang City, Henan Province, China. During one occasion when local residents were working on the mountain, a man named Lao Li was using a hoe to dig the soil in the Beiman area of Mount Shouyang when he suddenly heard a loud impact. The strike of the hoe did not sink into the ground as usual. Instead, it bounced back violently, causing the tool to fly out of his hand. At first, Lao Li thought he had simply hit a large rock or a buried piece of metal, so he planned to move to another location and continue working. But only a few minutes later, he noticed a row of neatly arranged blue bricks appearing beneath the soil. Sensing that this could be the remains of an ancient structure, Lao Li immediately reported the discovery to the local cultural heritage authorities. Soon after receiving the information, an archaeological team arrived at the site to conduct an investigation. You know what? The results of the preliminary examination surprised everyone. The underground remains were indeed an ancient tomb, and experts believed it likely dated back to the Three Kingdoms period. Even more importantly, the stone inscriptions and architectural components contained many delicate patterns depicting military figures, leading researchers to suspect that the owner of this tomb may have been a powerful general or a high-ranking figure in the royal court. But the surprises did not stop there. When the official excavation began, archaeologists were even more astonished to discover that the burial chamber inside was built on a grand scale, with a carefully organized layout and remarkably well-preserved structure. What was especially rare was that the tomb showed no signs of being disturbed by grave robbers, something extremely uncommon for large Chinese tombs that have existed for thousands of years. However, one detail left experts deeply puzzled. With such a magnificent structure, the tomb should have contained a large number of valuable burial objects. Yet, in reality, the number of precious artifacts discovered was surprisingly small, completely inconsistent with the status of the person who was believed to be buried there. Because of this, the most important question was no longer where the treasures were, but rather, who was actually resting inside this tomb? Fortunately, during the excavation, archaeologists discovered human remains inside the tomb and immediately invited forensic experts to conduct further analysis. The examination revealed that the remains dated to a period very close to the time when Sima Yi died. Combining the dating results, the scale of the architecture, the characteristics of the artifacts, and the construction style of the tomb, experts gradually reached a bold conclusion. This could very likely be the final resting place of Sima Yi. However, the most convincing evidence was still yet to be uncovered. While cleaning artifacts and architectural components inside the tomb, archaeologists discovered several carved inscriptions containing the words Zhangde and Sima. These were considered direct evidence connected to Sima Yi because Zhangde was his courtesy name recorded throughout history. These inscriptions became the final pieces of the puzzle, allowing archaeologists to almost completely eliminate their remaining doubts. After years of research and comparison, China's archaeological community finally confirmed that the tomb discovered on Mount Shouyang was indeed Gao Yuan Tomb, the burial place of Sima Yi. This discovery not only solved a mystery that had lasted for more than 1,700 years, but also provided valuable information about tomb architecture, burial rituals, and the lifestyle of the aristocratic class during the late Three Kingdoms period. You see, sometimes a single accidental strike from a farmer's hoe can open the door to one of the greatest secrets in history, allowing future generations to better understand the person who quietly changed the destiny of an entire dynasty. That is why saying that history always knows how to reveal itself at exactly the right moment would not be an exaggeration, would it? Two skeletons embracing for 800 years in an ancient Polish tomb, the final DNA results, make the mystery even more unsolvable. This extraordinary discovery was made during archaeological excavations carried out between 2022 and 2025 at the grounds of the Church of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross, a famous religious structure built in the 13th century in the city of Opole, Poland. The church is considered one of Poland's important architectural landmarks, featuring two Gothic brick towers that stand approximately 249 feet tall. The structure was later restored in the late 19th century with a combination of Gothic and Neo-Gothic architectural styles. It was precisely in the area beside this church that archaeologists discovered an approximately 800-year-old double burial, beginning one of the most unusual studies of medieval archaeology in Poland. However, what truly surprised everyone was the way the two skeletons had been positioned inside the grave. According to the research team, when the final layer of soil was removed, the two skeletons gradually appeared in relatively well-preserved condition. What immediately attracted attention was the extremely unusual burial posture. One individual was lying on her back, with both arms placed straight along the body, following the common Christian burial practices of the medieval period. Meanwhile, the other individual was lying on her side, with one arm positioned beneath the head of the other person, as if she were embracing the person beside her. Just imagine this. After hundreds of years beneath the ground, that image remained almost unchanged. Was it simply a deliberate arrangement during the burial ceremony, or did it hide a story that history had forgotten? Based on the location and burial arrangement, experts believe that both individuals were likely buried at the same time. Normally, double burials involving adults are often interpreted as the graves of married couples, but this time, researchers decided not to rush to a conclusion. They believed that relying only on skeletal appearance or burial posture to determine relationships could lead to inaccurate assumptions. For this reason, the research team led by Agata, an anthropologist from the Ludwig Hirschfeld Institute of Immunology and Experimental Therapy in Poland, conducted ancient DNA analysis. The research results were later published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, marking an important step forward in solving the mystery of this unusual burial. To conduct the study, scientists extracted DNA from the bones of both individuals and sequenced the surviving genetic fragments. According to Joanna Romeyer-Derbe, a DNA specialist at the University of Kiel, the process was similar to trying to reconstruct a book that had been torn into countless tiny pieces, requiring enormous patience and highly advanced analytical technology. Finally, the results surprised everyone. DNA analysis confirmed that both skeletons belonged to females and that they were not closely related by blood. This is considered the first genetically confirmed medieval double burial in Poland involving two individuals of the same sex. However, instead of solving the mystery, this discovery created even more questions. If they were not sisters or family members, then what connection brought these two women together? Why were they buried together in such an affectionate and intimate position? But that was not the only surprising detail. Even more remarkable was the location of the grave itself, positioned directly beside the wall of the Church of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross, a place that was traditionally reserved for kings, nobles, or individuals with a particularly high social status. According to researchers, this suggests that these two women were not considered outsiders or rejected members of medieval society. Meanwhile, in many parts of medieval Europe, same-sex relationships could sometimes face extremely severe punishments. Therefore, if these two women had truly been romantic partners, being buried in such a prestigious location would have been highly unlikely. Today, researchers believe that the bond between the two women was more likely connected to social relationships, religious institutions, shared circumstances, or their way of life, rather than biological family ties. However, these ideas remain only hypotheses. Scientists hope that continued analysis of other medieval burials in the Opole region of Poland will help determine whether this was simply an extraordinary individual case or evidence of a burial practice that once existed in society 800 years ago. Even today, the two skeletons remain lying beside each other, just as they were placed during their burial 8 centuries ago. No gold, no treasure, no priceless artifacts that changed history, but that silent embrace has become the very thing that continues to challenge archaeologists around the world as they search for the truth behind this extraordinary mystery. 2 strange iron-caged graves hiding a mystery that has been whispered about for more than 170 years. Hey, imagine this. One day, you are walking through an old cemetery and suddenly come across 2 graves locked inside enormous iron cages. what would be the first thing that comes to your mind? Would you think they were built to prevent grave robbers? Or perhaps something terrifying was buried beneath them, forcing people in the past to seal the graves behind thick iron bars? If you still cannot imagine the answer, then join me as we travel to a cemetery on the outskirts of Katowice, Pennsylvania, because it was here that two graves with such a strange appearance were discovered. For generations, this unusual site has attracted countless curious visitors who wanted to see it with their own eyes. And the more people looked at them, the more questions appeared. Why were only these two graves surrounded by iron cages? Who was buried beneath them? And were the frightening stories passed down for more than a century actually based on a real event? However, even today, despite many theories being proposed, the true mystery behind these two unusual graves remains unanswered, leaving everyone searching for a convincing explanation. Among hundreds of ordinary graves in the cemetery outside Katowice, only these two burial sites are surrounded by strong iron frameworks, creating an extremely unusual scene. This strange difference has turned the location into one of the most mysterious and fascinating places for people interested in American history and local folklore. According to surviving records, one of the graves belongs to Sarah Ann Boone, who died in 1852. She was the wife of Ranslow Boone and also the sister of Asenath. Both women died more than 170 years ago while they were still relatively young. What makes the story even more unusual is that Sarah Ann Boone passed away only a few days after her younger sister Asenath. Two deaths occurring close together within the same family, especially during a time when medical knowledge was still limited, quickly created rumors and speculation within the local community. Among the many stories that spread, the most famous legend passed down through generations claimed that Sarah and Asenath did not die from ordinary illnesses. Instead, some people believed they had been attacked by vampires or werewolves. This belief caused their family members to become extremely fearful, because, as you know, people in the past often believed that if someone was bitten by a vampire or a werewolf before death, they could rise again after burial and transform into the same terrifying creatures that attacked them. Therefore, to prevent this from happening, the family supposedly built strong iron cages around the graves to keep the bodies from rising. At first, this idea may sound impossible to believe. But if we place ourselves in the context of the 19th century, when stories about vampires and werewolves were still common in many parts of the world, this type of belief was not actually unusual. Fear of things that people could not explain sometimes led them to take extreme measures in search of peace of mind, including placing heavy iron cages over the graves of their loved ones. However, not everyone believes in this supernatural explanation. Some researchers suggest that the true purpose of the iron cages was much more practical. According to this theory, they were built to prevent grave robbers, body snatchers, or thieves from stealing valuable burial objects. During the 18th and 19th centuries, body snatching was a serious problem in many areas of Europe and North America, especially because medical schools needed human bodies for anatomy lessons. Because of this, many wealthy families searched for ways to protect the graves of their relatives, including installing iron protective structures around burial sites. However, this theory also fails to fully explain why, in the cemetery at Katowice, Pennsylvania, only these two graves were protected in such an unusual way, while all the surrounding graves remained completely ordinary. It is this unusual detail that has continued to fuel mysterious stories for generations. Today, more than 170 years have passed since Sarah Ann Boone died in 1852, yet the two iron-caged graves still quietly remain in the old cemetery as witnesses to the past. No one can say with complete certainty whether these iron cages were built to prevent vampires and werewolves, as local legends suggest, or whether they were simply a practical defense against grave robbers who were once a serious problem. And perhaps it is this uncertainty that has made these two graves one of the most fascinating mysteries. A place where the boundary between history and legend continues to overlap, waiting for a convincing answer in the future. So what do you think? Why do you believe these iron cages were built around the graves? Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below and share your opinion with everyone. Ancient tombs that mysteriously appear and disappear among the misty waters of West Lake, Vietnam. Have you ever stood in front of a peaceful lake and wondered, What could be hidden beneath the seemingly harmless surface of the water? You know, there are places that appear to be nothing more than beautiful natural landscapes, but when we look deeper into their past, they reveal entire stories buried by time. And West Lake in Hanoi, Vietnam, is exactly such a place. In the middle of this vast lake, where thousands of people come every day to enjoy the scenery, exercise, or admire the romantic beauty of the capital city, there is a phenomenon that has sparked the curiosity of many. At certain times, when the water level drops, several old stone structures suddenly emerge above the surface of the lake. But these are not small islands. They are ancient tombs that have existed for hundreds of years beneath the waters of West Lake. So why are human graves located in the middle of a large lake? Who were the people buried there? And what happened that caused an area once belonging to the living to eventually become the lake bed we see today? Let's uncover the answer together. The story begins in the area of Trich Sai Ancient Village, Bui Ward, Tay Ho District, Hanoi, Vietnam. This is one of the oldest areas connected to the formation and development of the West Lake region. For generations, local residents who have lived around the lake have become familiar with the sight of ancient tomb remains occasionally appearing above the water. However, for those seeing them for the first time, the feeling is certainly very different. Amid a vast body of water, old stone structures covered with moss suddenly emerge, looking like remnants from a forgotten world trying to tell their own story. But strangely, no one can say with certainty who these tombs actually belong to, including many local people who have lived in the area for generations. Throughout history, many folk stories have circulated. Some people believe these were the burial places of ancient generals who had achieved great accomplishments and were given a special resting place. Others believe they are sacred tombs connected to mysterious legends passed down from generation to generation. This lack of clear information has only made the tombs in West Lake even more mysterious. It was not until local historians and researchers began investigating more deeply that an interesting truth gradually emerged. They suggested that these tombs likely did not belong to powerful figures or legendary beings as rumors claimed, but were simply the remaining traces of ancient burial grounds that once existed in this area. Because hundreds of years ago, West Lake was not the same place we know today. Today, West Lake covers an area of more than 1,200 acres, contains millions of cubic meters of water, and is one of the largest natural lakes in Hanoi. However, in the distant past, this area was once a low-lying region with villages, farmland, and ancient residential communities. Around West Lake, there were many traditional villages such as Trich Sai, Ho Khao, Tui Quay, and Nhi Tam. And like many other ancient communities, this area also had burial grounds where people laid their deceased to rest. According to people familiar with local history, as the landscape changed over time, some low-lying areas gradually became covered by water. The old cemeteries were also submerged beneath the lake. Therefore, the tombs that can still be seen today may only be the remaining visible parts of a much larger ancient cemetery system that existed centuries ago. One of the areas mentioned most frequently is the Dong Tao Cemetery in the Unggi Tam area of Hanoi. According to researchers, this location was once a large cemetery near Kim Lien Pagoda. However, due to changes in the natural landscape, the area gradually became part of West Lake. Not only that, in the Xuan La area of Tay Ho District, local residents have also shared stories that this place once contained a large cemetery with many solidly constructed tombs. Over time, these remains were covered by layers of mud and soil, slowly disappearing from people's memories. But beyond the archaeological story, West Lake is also associated with many mysterious legends. People who have lived around the lake for many years continue to pass down stories about unusual events occurring in areas once believed to contain ancient burial grounds. You see, history, archaeology, and the ancient world are truly fascinating, aren't they? They always find a way to surprise us with incredible discoveries, if not in one way, then in another. So, in your opinion, among all the discoveries we have explored above, which one was the most mysterious and the most impressive to you? Don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the Ancient History channel and turn on notifications so you never miss any of the fascinating discoveries we share. And now goodbye, and see you again in the next journey.